I mean, if the government was hoping and praying for a mild start to the winter with the winter fuel allowance cuts, their prayers haven't been answered. It started
early.
Bad foot for them.
Yeah, it started early. You don't normally get
warnings
snow.
about old people being unable to heat because they have to eat.
Yeah, well, we've discussed for a long time that the winter fuel allowance cut 10 million pensioners up to £300 is going to cast a long shadow over this government, and some people will die this year because of it. You can cost-benefit analysis all your benefits, and in the Tory years of austerity, cutting benefits for poorer people had a tool, the study after study showing people died, and some people will die. Now, it was a lunatic decision.
Well, this tax survived 7 Conservative chancellors. They kept it. There was talk when Theresa May was running for government election in 2017 they'd get rid of it, but 7 Tory chancellors kept it. Who would have thought the first Labour chancellor for 15 years would axe it? How
will they deal with it? Because under their own figures, their own survey that they did, I think in about 2015, 2017, they predicted that if there was a winter fuel cut like this, many, many people would die. When that starts to happen, how are they going to deal with it?
With difficulty. It's... the Tories at the time dismissed that Labour survey as scaremongering. But the fact is, if you take money away from poorer people, and some of them are only on 220 quid a week, you take 300 quid away, they're not going to turn the heating up. Others will have enough money to turn their heating up, but they will worry too. They'll have an anxiety about it because it's called the winter fuel allowance, and that will have reassured them. And, if you've got the money, turn your heating up. And it's very difficult to pin individual deaths on a cut. Now, the opponents will do that, but we won't know for at least another year or maybe 2 years what the increase in deaths are, because some people will die anyway. It always happens every winter, I'm sad to say, particularly if you're older and you're vulnerable and it gets colder, you're more likely to die. You see the figures go up. They're called excess deaths. That's what they call them in government. That will happen, but there'll be some shroud waving, and it'll be very politically difficult for the government when that happens.
But we get the cold this soon. Those pensioners who are very frugal are certainly not going to turn the heating because they'll be worried. If it's cold now, what's it going to be like in January? What's it going to be like in February? And, of course, they can apply for this benefit. 40 questions, or is it 50 questions? It's online for most people. They struggle with it.
Massive document.
And look, we get letters at the mail every day from pensioners saying, we are not taking charity. They're proud and stubborn and they don't feel they should.
And here's the other flip side to that argument. There are going to be elderly people who will put the heating on now. They'll feel they have to because they're freezing. It's really cold in the northern half of the country. And they're then going to be terrified that whatever small amount of money they set aside in their heads, in their own budget, to heat the home, will have been spent.
Well, you've got to be on your uppers to qualify for the allowance now, under the pension credit system they use. If you have a small occupational pensions, you lose it, and it's a cliff-edge benefit. You just go £1 over the limit and you lose it all. You lose all £300. It's not means-tested in the sense if it's drawn back over a gradual period of time. It's you're off the cliff and it all goes. I welcome your conversion to the end of means testing for benefits, because so much of the system is all about means testing. The winter fuel allowance wasn't means tested. And yes, there used to be incredibly wealthy pensioners saying, "Oh, we don't need it." And I used to always think, well, just be lucky you get it, but you're going to undermine this benefit for a lot of other people.
Well, there are rich pensioners who don't take it. We know that. But there should be a way whereby that money they don't take goes into a pot which helps the pensioners now who are really struggling.
Well,
because otherwise it just disappears into a black hole.
I've certainly spoken to pensioners who've said that they used to give their winter fuel payments to a charity or to a food
Good for them.
bank.
Which is great.
Susanna, good for them if they're in a position to do that. They've got enough money. That's great.
But what seems astonishing is that the cut-off point for the winter fuel allowance wasn't much, much higher than the threshold for pension credit. And the other thing that's obviously very disheartening is that we expect the energy regulator, Ofgem, to reveal on Friday that the energy price cap is going to go up on January the 1st, by 1%. So energy bills are on their way up again.
And it may be £20 a year or so. Every pound is very difficult if you're on the breadline.
Yeah, it really is. It's so frightening. This is the first amber cold weather health alert of the season, and it's issued by the UK Health Security Agency. Charities have been warning about this, but
this isn't scaremongering, is it? I mean, this is a genuine warning.
And charities like Age UK, who do fantastic work all year round, have said it, and they've said it again. This will be a choice between heating and eating.
But it looks like the Iron Chancellor's not for turning.
No, well, the Iron Chancellor who brought in the winter fuel allowance, Gordon Brown, is now promoting warm welcome, which is a nationwide movement to have warm places. Sometimes it's a community centre, sometimes
or a library.
A library.
Yeah, and they've not been closed.
People, if you can't turn your heating on at home, do not stay in the cold. Find out where you can go to now. Not everyone can get out.
No.
I mean, that's a problem. It is.
Especially if it's snowed in.
I kind of despair.
Politically, Rachel Reeve's great political hero is Gordon Brown. If you look at his very last speech to the Labour Congress as Prime Minister back in 2009, he listed his government's achievements. The first one he listed was the winter fuel allowance, and yet she's toppled it.
Well, you say that the Iron Chancellor's not for turning. I wonder, I mean, if this early cold snap is the beginning of a very bad winter, I do wonder what the government will be thinking and saying, but come January and February.
Yeah, they have cold weather payments in the system, don't they, which will be triggered for lower income people.
Special circumstances.
Yeah,
How many will have died by then?
You could tweak that, but I thought it was a mistake in the budget not to reverse the cut. It should not have been there, particularly as a standalone cut.
Well, she didn't mention it in the budget. Wasn't mentioned in the budget. Do you want to think for over an hour?
Well, you wouldn't, would you?
Don't mention it.
Well, you wouldn't.
So unpopular. She could have said, I'm sticking to my guns because...
No, you don't.
And justify it. No mention.
You hope people's attention moves on, but it won't, because it'll come back all winter.
There were questions being asked today, and sort of getting louder and louder about the things that Rachel Reeves mentioned on her CV. Now, let's just point this out. So this was revealed by the Guido Fawkes website, and then the Telegraph's picked this up and pointed out that on her CV for being Chancellor, Rachel Reeves said that she was an economist at the Bank of Scotland between December 2006 to December 2009. In actuality, she was in retail banking at Halifax. Now,
over the same period.
I wonder, does that land with people? Do they think, well, Bank of Scotland, Halifax, economist at Bank of Scotland, she was in retail banking at Halifax. Maybe they're not so worried, but...
Well, it's HBOS, isn't it? Halifax Bank of Scotland company.
Yeah. But there's a second one here.
The Bank of England. She said she worked at the Bank of England for the best part of a decade. She actually worked there for 6 years. Technically, best part of a decade.
Can she not add up?
But she said herself, as a former Bank of England economist, I know what it will take to get Britain's economy back on track. However, she, in a separate tweet, had described herself as a very junior analyst. Do people worry about that, the difference between being an economist at the Bank of England and an analyst?
Look, you can't tell your truth on your CV. Why do you trust money?
Well, come on. I think you'll find she's not going to be the first or last.
Look, it seems to me she's kind of overblown her back. She wouldn't be the first. The suggestion when she was in retail bank, yes.
Exaggerating.
Exactly when she was in retail banking,
is that not what everyone does on their CV?
Well, I haven't on mine, actually.
Oh,
but it's been
let
so
me polish that earlobe.
Let's see the proof.
It's about 20,000 years old.
Let's just pick up on the phraseology. You said the best part
You've never got a job if you tell the truth.
To me, the best part of the decade is 8 or 9 years.
Exactly, not 6.
It's not 6 years. That's just over half a decade.
It's embarrassing, come on.
It's the best part of a decade.
It is.
Technically, but not in common parlance.
No.
If I worked for 6 years somewhere, I just wouldn't say that I'd worked there for the best part of a decade. I'd say 6 years.
But if I said, oh, that's the best part of a decade, you go, yeah.
I'd say, well, technically, but that's not the meaning of the phrase.
No, I don't think so.
It isn't. I mean, you're attempting to create...
And Susanna, you wouldn't say the best part of the decade if it was 6 years.
I think you'll find 60% is the best part of 100%.
Exactly.
I mean, it is. Look,
but you wouldn't say that,
would you? She has spun it, but it's not dishonest.
No,
that is
it's not a lie. It is not a lie.
I find the Prime Minister's response to questions about this really interesting. He was asked if he thought that the Chancellor had been entirely straight with the public about her career or if she'd exaggerated her CV. Now, you would expect him to say not at all, or there are often glitches in people's CVs, or whatever. But no. A Number 10 spokesman said yesterday about Starmer, He is very clear this is a Chancellor that's been straight with the public about the state of the public finances and what is necessary to restore financial stability. That is most important. That is dodging the question.
Yeah, no,
that's answering a different question.
Exactly.
The usual technique.
But of course you would, wouldn't it? Look, if we find out that the Prime Minister's not the son of a toolmaker and a nurse, and his dad was a FTSE 100 chief executive, and his mum was a great investor in a stockbroker or something, that would be.
Well, we've laid it out.
That would be
a scandal.
That would be a scandal.
Yeah.
It's embarrassing for Rachel Reeves, just like it was when she produced a book and you found out some bits of it were cut and pasted from the internet.
And the point is, she's only...
Which I'm sure a researcher probably
she's
did
only
for her.
just changed her online CV since the Guido Fawkes revelations.
Exactly.
That's the point. Now it's been subsequently changed to say,
So
not in economy, but she was in retail banking. The suggestion is she was involved in complaint.
OK.
She'll get used to those.
Retail banking at the Halifax, not Scotland, not the best part of a decade at the Bank of England, 6 years. Where do we think the story's going? Will it fizzle out?
Yeah. It's rather like Kemi Badenoch, now the leader of the Conservative Party, who was born into a wealthy family, then saying she became working class when she did shifts in McDonald's as, as a student.
Well, that was almost fun.
I mean, it was almost fun. And you kind of laugh about it, and that's probably it. I mean, look, it's almost everybody is exaggerated at some point to get a job, their achievements. Except me.
What do you want to allude to, Kevin?
Is this your moment for a confessional, Kevin?
But, when you go in for an interview or you're presenting yourself, you put your best foot forward, don't you? And you polish your shoe.
All right, full disclosure, I wasn't an astronaut. I watched the Apollo 11 mission on telly.
Oh, it was so disappointing.
Meanwhile, there is more backlash to the budget, and this time it is some of Britain's biggest retailers who are saying that the national insurance employers' national insurance rise is going to mean the loss of jobs and an increase in prices. And the list of these companies is quite extraordinary. So it's Tesco, Marks and Spencer's, Sainsbury's, Asda, and next, other signatories, Amazon, Boots, Aldi, Lidl, Ocado, Morrison's, Greggs, Currys, B&Q, Burberry, JD Sports, Holland and Barrett, Oliver Bonus and Specsavers. And in many cases, this is the first time a number of these companies have gone public with their concerns about the budget. Because there's the increase in the national minimum wage. I mean, that is welcome, paying people more. But, of course, that means that probably everybody's wages in a company structure might have to go up. And then there's the increase in employers.
And they raised the national insurance rate from 13.8% to 15%, but they lowered the threshold at which it's paid from 9,500 to 5,000. That's really hitting retailers. And some of them, smaller ones in particular, are on tight margins.
These are not smaller retailers. Because it's special
but they
pleading.
can absorb it, Kevin. They've got big profits. This will cost customers more money.
They can't avoid national insurance and VAT. It's one of those taxes. It's very hard for them to get out. They can wriggle around on corporation tax and so on. What your costs are. That's right. But I know Tesco. Were
£1 billion.
We were picking up £1 billion over 5 years. Their profits over those 5 years were probably going to be 15 billion. So, excuse me if I'm not crying a river of tears for these huge retailers which are normally screwing their customers, screwing their suppliers and trying to screw their employees. So, sorry. I'm not.
There's Labour for you.
There are people I have sympathy for.
That sounds like quite an anti-business message.
Wealth generators,
I'm not having business as usual. We've got to change the way business is.
Wealth generators, job creators, fair game from Maguire's Labour Party.
I thought this Labour government was all about promoting growth.
I'm not the Labour government, and they have a lot of proposals, as you know, to increase wealth.
They're going to strangle growth.
They inherited very poor public services and a deficit. On the spending, and it's got to be sorted.
And think about the small companies that are faced with these.
He calls for higher spending every day on just about everything. Well, how are you going to raise the money for it?
Think about the small companies that also have to pay those exact same.
They are the ones I have sympathy for.
Who is telling the truth, the farmers or the government?
Not the government.
According to the Treasury, around 500 out of the 209,000 UK farms are going to be impacted by these changes to Inheritance Tax. I'll repeat that, 500 out of 209,000 farms. The farmers are saying it's closer to 70,000 farms, not 500, 70,000. I mean, there are discrepancies and there are discrepancies. I mean, that's
But look, there are three sides to every story here. There'll be the government side, the farmer's side, and there'll be something in the middle, right? And we're not quite sure where that middle is exactly at the moment.
The Treasury haven't said where they got that figure of 500 from.
I think
they've treated with disbelief by farmers.
Yes, they've calculated it on a certain tax.
It's the HMRC figures.
Yeah. The farmers say there are other taxes that farmers pay, or tax reliefs that farmers get, which should be added into those figures. So they believe that the Treasury's got the figures wrong, including Jeremy Clarkson, who's going to join. 20,000 farmers are expected to be protesting in Westminster today. And this is quite a move for Jeremy Clarkson because he's recovering after his life-saving heart operation.
His doctors told him not to go. His doctors told him he shouldn't be there.
But he wants to defend his
farm.
His tax avoidance scheme. It's a tax avoidance scheme for him. He said when he bought that...
No, he's been very
farm,
open about that.
Exactly.
He has he said
it's entitled.
Up front, it's a tax loophole.
Exactly.
However, because he is genuinely, his elbows up into pig muck farmer, he feels he can speak on their behalf.
Yes, exactly.
Surely he can.
Because he's a big voice and he's a big name and he's popular, and his programme has been brilliant, Clarkson's farm.
To raise awareness.
Because it's shown how difficult it is for farmers to make money and what hard work it is. These are workers that Keir Starmer's budget said we're not going to hit the workers. I wouldn't want to be a farmer up every morning, every day of the year, 365 days of the year. They put food on our table, They put food on our table.
Clarkson is entitled and defending his tax avoidance scheme. Now, again, I'll have sympathy for smaller farmers, particularly family farmers.
Well, there's thousands of them.
You've got to ask, why should farmers, under the changes, have an inheritance tax allowance that is 3 times that just about everybody else watching this programme?
Because
they will then pay only half the rate after that.
20%.
And they will get 10 years to pay it rather than a matter of months.
But Kevin,
it's
because usually when people pay inheritance tax, they sell their assets or the assets that they've inherited in order to pay it. The point about farming is it's a family business.
That's right. Generations.
And so they generally don't sell the farm because the point is the farm needs to keep producing food or whatever products it's producing for the country.
That is why smaller farms, £3 million, if there's 2 people in a partnership, well, married or civil partners in that farm, their personal tax allowance, then they get an extra $1 million each. 3 times the inheritance tax allowance of everybody else,
then they will obviously lose
half the rate after that.
The trouble is, Kevin, what do we do? What do we do?
Not a matter of months.
What do we do if families feel they have to sell the farm in order to pay the tax? What do we do then? Because that could lead to a reduction in the amount of food that is produced for the country.
Food shortages.
Yeah, it could. And before you jump in here, you screwed farmers with Brexit and dodgy...
Here we go.
No.
My God, you are getting desperate, mate.
So why screw them further, then?
You are desperate.
I'd rather have a much fairer system, cutting...
Well, let him jump in.
Desperate. This is desperate.
This is desperate.
I've never known Maguire talking quite so much rubbish, because he really is spewing it out.
Is he muck spreading?
Spewing it out.
I like that better.
I
like that better.
I talk to farmers up and down the country, small farmers, hundreds and thousands. They are desperate. They think their whole lifestyle and way of work is coming to an end.
Well, even if you
because of this Labour government, which, by the way, there was no hint of this coming in the budget. No hint of this coming in the manifesto.
No,
again,
none at all. No.
None whatsoever.
But even if we accept, let's say that the farmers are half right about what they're claiming, what presumably is going to happen is that we're going to get a glut of farms coming onto the market to pay the inheritance tax. And therefore, because we all know the laws of demand and supply, what's going to happen there is the price of land is going to drop and they may not be able to pay off the inheritance tax.
Well, they won't have to then, because the price of land has dropped. So when they sell, when they die,
surely it's judged on the point of death.
I was listening to a farmer.
I think it's judged on the point of death.
I was listening to a farmer on the way in talking about how landowners, as a tax scam, are buying up acres and acres and acres, and if they can't do that because it's no longer their tax dodge and the price of land falls, that would encourage more people into farming and would be good for the industry. Now, that's not the intention of the budget. I accept that. The budget is about raising money to fund public service, including rural areas, the NHS, better schools, better public transport.
They've just shoved up bus prices in rural areas.
All those areas where rural communities have been clobbered for the past 14 years.
The fact is, these people, farmers, are custodians of the countryside too. a British countryside, the whole way of life is under threat because of this budget.
Yeah, your editor-in-chief and your
Okay.
writer as well.
Cheap.
Well, you know they
Kevin,
bought
I've
a lot of
idea.
land.
Don't know what you're talking
Big
about.
story, guys, is I'm a celebrity. Is it
Yes, and Colleen Rooney has spoken out.
Didn't take her long, did it?
I'm sure the bookers wanted her to. Colleen Rooney said going to court over her Wagatha Christie feud with Rebecca Vardy was her worst nightmare. She felt she was putting on a show for the whole world. But she'd been asked, you know, was she scared about making the viral post... ... Rebecca Vardy's account, which kicked off the dispute. Let's have a listen to what she said.
I just didn't think it would get the impact it did.
Really?
I just done it because I was just that sick and tired of it. I felt ashamed going to court because I'm not that type to play things out in
But you didn't.
public. I just felt like it was putting on a show for the whole world.
Yeah.
I didn't want that. I wanted to settle it before and get it done with.
Who owns that term?
That's a whole other... She does.
Yeah, she might be after you now.
That's insane.
So she's saying she wanted to settle before it came to court, and she expected it to be settled before it came to court because she felt she had a cast-iron case, and indeed she did because she won.
Yeah, well, it was Rebecca Vardy who brought the case, a disastrous own goal by her, an incredibly expensive blow to her, and she's not letting it go now. No, Colleen Rooney, I thought, whoever came up with Wagatha Christie now,
brilliant.
It might have been her. It's probably somebody.
Yeah.
It was a journalist, wasn't it?
It was brilliant.
Who came up with Wagatha Christie.
Yeah,
It was
it's brilliant.
fantastic.
And Rebecca Vardy has her say in The Sun.
Of course she has.
This morning.
What's she saying?
Which is the paper she was accused of selling the stories to, or giving the stories to.
Colleen Rooney really is the gift that keeps on giving. And you can read what Rebecca Vardy says
it cost Rebecca Vardy
in The Sun.
a lot of money, that
I really
case.
want to finish on something which has really taken my attention this morning. It is World Toilet Day today. Two-thirds of Brits hide in the toilet to avoid colleagues, noise, or even their own children. Confession time. Have you ever zipped into the WC into
To
the
avoid
men's
Kevin
room
Maguire?
to get away from the editor?
Many occasions.
No.
To avoid Maguire any time.
I'd flush him down. But no, it's... I don't think I've ever hidden from my kids in the toilet. I normally just...
I think I might have
When
hidden...
kids are small, you can't hide from them.
No.
but when they're older and they're going
I
you
think
just
when
go
my-
on to standby mode.
I
You're
think
like
when
a
my mother
computer.
was brandishing the slipper, I might have locked myself in the loo, because it's the only place with a lock.
Oh, yeah, would it be that?
It gets worse, guys. It gets worse. 13% of 16 to 34-year-olds have taken a selfie on the toilet and posted it online, including big stars. We can't show you the pictures because they're a bit early
I think
this
that's
time
a
in the
bit.
morning.
Yeah. We did have a look and decided they weren't fit for broadcast.
And almost half of people say that they send texts from the toilet while they're sitting on the loo. Yep.
No, but there's a serious side as well, isn't there? There's people like train drivers, stuck in a cab and there's no toilets. Or around the world, people in poorer countries, developing countries, just don't have access to toilets. It's terrible for hygiene, safety, privacy, everything.
Well, it's interesting you say that, because that's the whole point of World Toilet Day. It's a survey that's been done for Tear Fund, which asks people in the UK about their loo habits as part of a toilet twinning campaign to flush away poverty. Thank you both very much. We are going to see you.
Popping to the... No.
No.